And welcome everyone to the third installment of this painfully long SCR. This one has issues 21 through 30. Again, check the description for key events, and here's a skippy button if you've already heard my intro to this video. Okay, so first off, go buy the comics. That's it. I'm not here to deliver the nostalgia and enjoyment of these comics. I am here to summarize their stories, comment on their stories, and reflect in retrospective on their overall presentations. I don't want to become an enemy of Archie, so I don't want you to think that these SCRs are somehow a way to bypass reading them. On another note, thanks to RKFan23 on the forums for giving me that shoutout. I only found that website a few days ago and I was pretty rattled that someone actually linked my videos, so I'm trying to register under Auckland, so yeah, Flynn, help me out. Okay, so this is where it starts to get messy. If you find yourself questioning any story continuity, I'll tell you how I deal with it. Every time I read a story, I keep that story in the back of my head because 10 issues from now, most of the time, continuity won't matter. The only thing you need to remember is that it happened at some point, even though sometimes we wish it didn't. So, now I present to you my generic timeline of the issues to come. I've changed my mind since the last video, and I'm going to have separate videos of each individual spin-off to keep the video at a tolerable length. I will cover issues 21 through 30 in this video, and give very generic, I'm talking like 5 seconds worth, of a refresher for each spin-off. So I highly recommend either watching the separate videos, or even better, go out and buy the Sonic Selects that they were reprinted in and read them yourselves. So first I'm going to bring back Sonic in your face. Everything I said before applies. I'm just going to add a few details. One is that Sally got her blue jacket and a treasure map from Jalela's Hoke chest, which was intended to be given to Sally on her wedding, but since Jalela passed away, she got it early. Everyone follows the treasure map, completes some challenges with the help of their new friend Nicole, and discovers another Hoke chest, where Sally finds a scroll that was written by a future Queen Sally. It is revealed that Nicole is a gift from the future from Queen Sally and King Sonic, and was created by a future Rotor. Along with these details, it is also stated that Queen Sally's version of Nicole, in that particular future, was killed during the final battle with their Robotnik. So that was Sonic in your face. On another note, and a little something I should bring up now, is that there are multiple alternate futures that the comic introduces. The reason being is because each author had a different story that they wanted to be told. Sometimes, to tell that story, they had to explain something that the previous author stated. The Archie Sonic universe does this with alternate futures and multiple dimensions, similar to DC and Marvel. So, if you couldn't follow me through all that, no worries, I'll try to explain as the comics continue, because it starts to get a bit complicated from here on out. Now, because of that, I'm going to start using the term Prime. What this means is that the event or character I am talking about is part of the real Mobius that the comic is based on. Okay, as you can see in my nifty timeline, the Sally miniseries takes place between the previous issue 20 and the first issue of this SCR. So I'll give you 3 seconds to click on that. Okay, so Sally ran with the new Freedom Fighter recruits, did a double agent mission with E.V.E, and established a possible relationship between the two. Now we start with issue 21, which has some nice pencils from Patrick, or Spaz as he's referred to. As Cloud Davis once said, we're now entering some of the more Sat AM styled comics. Alright, Sonic is blowing through a bunch of SWAT bots and believes Robotnik to be out of new tricks, when secretly Robotnik is actually gathering information on Sonic's abilities. He feeds the data to E.V.E, which is a bot that continuously evolves. After Sonic comes across E.V.E for the first time, he defeats it. Robotnik states that his plan was for E.V.E to collect Sonic's DNA, mix it with his own to create a machine that was smart like Robotnik and resourceful like Sonic. E.V.E gets destroyed a few times, with Sonic running to Robotnik wondering what's up. E.V.E goes through a 4th evolution and realizes that Robotnik is its main limitation in its evolution process. It reveals the faults to Robotnik's plan and presumably kills him. It goes after Sonic, but Sonic gives it a paradox that causes it to take off into space. It doesn't appear for a while. Turning into issue 22, we have the alternate future of King Sonic and Queen Sally with their kids. This is the presumed future from In Your Face, the one that sent Nicole back in time. Basically, Robotnik appears in their alternate future, gets teleported to a hidden space station, where a future version of him reveals himself to be trapped in a computer screen because he roboticized himself as an ultimatum against Sonic and copied his brain processes into this incomplete space station. It is revealed that Robotnik Prime was sent to this alternate timeline that's also another dimension, which basically means that it isn't the actual future. It ends with Robotnik Prime being sent back to the Prime dimension, and while that was happening, the Freedom Fighters are packing up all of Robotnik's junk when Snively accidentally activates a voice code that causes an automation of Robotnik to destroy all of Mobius, thinking he has finally been killed. So, in short, Robotnik returns in the nick of time, deactivates the automation at the price of finally finishing off Sonic, but saving the planet that he wishes to rule.
Why you so dumb?
However, he decides to tell Sonic this as an attempt to stab at his heroic ego. There's also a story in this issue about Sally telling Tails a bedtime story. It has no plot points, but it's a cute little story, so go buy it. Alright guys, sadly we lost Ken Penders, who was the one who wrote all the half-decent stories so far. So while he was on vacation, we're left with Mikey 1.5. And talk about a change in pace. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have my dislikes on Ken Penders, but at least his contributions so far were entertaining. This is like 1 to 10 again. Okay, diving in. Robotnik attacks the Freedom Fighters with a portable roboticizer.
Forget that exists.
Everyone gets abducted by an alien named Car-heem, who only wants to study them. Robotnik is forced to join the Freedom Fighters, and they devise a plan where Sonic gets into Car-heem's suit to distract him, while everyone escapes the biodome. Robotnik opens a door that sends Car-heem and Sonic into space. The Freedom Fighters rescue Car-heem and Sonic. Car-heem apologizes for being so inconsiderate and returns everyone back to Mobius. And to think that all happened after a story like that. Anyways, the second story is a bit better. Tails goofed and lost Sonic's power ring in Robotropolis. Antoine bravely decides to go get it himself. Tails tells Bunny, who quickly chases after him off panel. It's a basic story where Antoine gets saved repeatedly by something he's completely oblivious to. He gets the ring, returns back to Knothole, and presumably finds out Bunny helped him out the whole time, and, well, at least this whack job writer got something started. Alright, issue 24. Yay, Ken's back. We begin with all the Freedom Fighters being assholes to everyone, and is later revealed to be the anti-Freedom Fighters posing on Mobius Prime. We switch to Rotor, Tails, Sonic, and Antoine all trying to break the zone of silence, which is where Sally's father is said to be trapped. Not knowing what everyone is doing, Sally states she just returned from the events in the miniseries when they notice that Knothole is pounding at their door. Everyone is hostile towards them, so they retreat and plan to capture their posers. They fool the anti-Freedom Fighters into fighting them, but can't win against their own counterparts, so they switch. Sonic beats Anti-Sally, Sally beats Anti-Antoine, Antoine beats Anti-Rotor, Rotor beats Anti-Tails, and Tails beats Anti-Sonic. I guess I should also include that Anti-Sonic was the one who wanted to attack Mobius Prime basically because he was bored and found Sonic to be his only challenge. Alrighty, Comic 25, a landmark issue, and to top it off, Spaz is doing the pencils, but fuck! The issue is a Sonic CD adaptation, so you can guess who's going to be introduced. It starts off with Rotor attaching a high-tech camera to Sonic's feet. We skip to Robotnik unveiling his new zone and deciding to send Metal Sonic out to capture Sonic's #1 fan. He announces this to Sonic, who immediately gets angry. After trying to decide what to do, Sonic sends Tails out to do some reconnaissance, but gets caught.
For the third fucking time!
But at least this time it wasn't all his fault. Anyways, Sonic goes on ahead. We switch to Sally and Rotor, who discover using Sonic's shoe cam that Snively is right behind him burning up his trail. I don't really know how that works. We then have Sonic meet Metal Sonic. Forget they said Mecha, by the way. They race through the Starlight Zone while Sally and Rotor show up on a plane. Sonic uses a Super 8 peel-out move from the game, and in this one picture, we have Amy, Rose, and Tails being saved, Sonic beating Metal, Sally smashing Robotnik, and Rotor capturing Snively. So boom, there's the 25th issue. Good thing Spaz made up for the script with his awesome pencils, but he still couldn't save us from Mikey's all-too-familiar fourth wall breakers. Okay guys, next comes another 48-page special. It's called Sonic and Knuckles. You got 3 seconds to click the annotation, or you can go and buy the Sonic Select Book 1 and read it yourself. Okay, so Sonic and Tails dealt with the floating island, and Knuckles has some issues of his own arising. We now enter Sonic 26, and sadly take another few steps back. I'm going to try to make this one brief. The Freedom Fighters are outside on a hot day when it suddenly turns freezing because Robotnik changed the weather. They seek refuge in a nearby cave with Robotnik chasing after them. A group of Arctic Mobians take them in refuge and train them in the way of winter clothing over the course of 1 week. The freedom fighters attack the weather annihilator. Snively freezes them all, but gets chased off by the Arctic Mobians. They eventually destroy the stupid weather thingy. The Arctic Mobians become Arctic freedom fighters and blah blah blah. I fucking hate reading these stories now. Alrighty, moving into a slightly better grounded story. Sonic sprains his ankle, so the freedom fighters take refuge in a presumed Fort Acorn. Robotnik attacks him. Sonic gets the bright idea to have Rotor use a nearby blacksmith workshop to forge Bunny some heavy armor. She takes down some bots, tricks Robotnik, and ends on the notion that it was all Sonic's idea, which I'm not too keen on considering that the role would have been better suited for any of the other characters. Alright guys, next we got Sonic Triple Trouble. Again, you got 3 seconds. Okay, so, Knack the Weasel is a bounty hunter, Knuckles met the Ancient Walkers, Tails did a solo mission in a sub, and Knuckles is on the hunt for Archimedes. Alrighty, 27. If you watch the TV show, this story might be somewhat familiar. So, we start out with the 2 undercover freedom fighters, Sleuth Doggy Dog and Kicks a Lot. What the fuck? Anyways, they leave a secret encoded message for Sonic, but when he shows up, he gets knocked unconscious by a SWAT bot.
Winning!
So Sonic wakes up under Robotnik's control, but doesn't remember anything about his past. Snively shows some doubt, which is subtly refreshing, but comes to terms as Robotnik trains Sonic to beat up robotic duplicates of his former friends. Robotnik attaches a transmitter to Sonic, then sends him out to locate Knothole, which he does. His friends notice something is wrong and try to stop him. Sonic's friends eventually need to flood the tunnels to protect everybody in Knothole. Sonic manages to burrow his way out, to Robotnik's delight, survives, and begins to attack Knothole. It ends with Sonic showing up at Freedom HQ. Sonic 28 picks up on the same story. He attacks Rotor, then goes for Sally, but Sally manages to hold her own until Bunny and Tails arrive. All 3 of them pin him down, but he breaks free, knocking out everyone except Tails, who he hunts down a few seconds later.
Oh!
We switch to Robotnik and Snively and learn that Knothole has a local level jammer, which is keeping him from locking on directly. They attempt to backtrack Sonic's signal when they lose it completely. We switch to Sonic being trapped in a dark room by Antoine, Arlo, Penelope, and Hamlin. They all attempt to attack Sonic, but ultimately fail, when Dylan Porcupine catches him off guard and knocks him out. You should know who they all are if you read the Sally miniseries, which is briefly referenced here. We switch over to Sonic in the hospital, where he got his memory back, but doesn't remember being under Robotnik's control. They discover Robotnik's transmitter, which Sonic uses to trick Robotnik into sending his demolition tractors off a cliff. So in short, the entrance to Knothole was destroyed and rebuilt. Robotnik thinks the tunnel Sonic used to trick him was a decoy and doesn't suspect it to be the real deal, which it actually was. The next story takes off with Sonic trying to apologize to Tails for attacking him. Tails takes off in his Sea Fox. We see Robotnik has some plans in store for Tails and references the robot duplicates from Sally's miniseries. He sets up an island where Tails investigates and finds Fiona Fox. They immediately fall in love, but Robotnik has the robot trick Tails into entering a trap. It ends with him ordering the robot to roboticize Tails. Alrighty, moving into 29, we're introduced to Dulcy, who finally makes an appearance in the comics.
Damn it!
Sonic and Dulcy trash a Robotnik hovercraft and find a single-shot de-roboticizer in it.
That wouldn't be useful right now at all!
In short, Bunny devises a plan and Sally volunteers to get roboticized.
What?
And destroy Robotnik's compound from the inside.
Idiot!
Rotor puts some neural chip thingy behind her ear so it keeps her mentally stable. She gets captured but drops her earpiece and gets roboticized. Sonic and his friends wait outside for Sally's return, but instead end up with Sally capturing everyone. Dulcy conveniently shows up and sees everyone being dragged to the roboticizer. She also conveniently decided to bring the de-roboticizer with her. So she breaks in last second, brings Sally back, and chases off Robotnik before he was able to roboticize everyone. The next story turns to Tails, where he destroys the roboticizer by clogging it with fur from his tails. Robotnik orders Fiona to attack him, with Tails not wanting to attack her. He evades Fiona, only to have Robotnik use the mechanical island against him. But Tails breaks free, beats Robotnik, but gets tackled by Fiona into the water, only to have her rust and Robotnik get away. Tails is left completely heartbroken, finds out that Robotnik has a scheme, and decides to tackle it alone to prove his independence. Alright, next in continuity is the Tails miniseries. Again, 3 seconds. Okay, so Tails meets the 40 Fathom Freedom Fighters, the Down Under Freedom Fighters, the new villain named Crockpot, Knuckles' great-grandfather, and here's some weird prophecies by the Ancient Walkers. Okay guys, the last issue of this video, number 30, starts out with Sonic wishing Uncle Chuck was still around. We switch to Robotnik and see he repaired the Trans-Dimensional Transporter, which was a machine from the TV show that essentially allows dimension hopping, and was used to send King Acorn, or Sally's father, to the Void. Robotnik decides to test it on Sonic's uncle, but accidentally sends himself there. Snively prospers on the opportunity and decides to betray Robotnik and continue by himself. While this is happening, and unknown to them, gives Uncle Chuck his free will back. Uncle Chuck returns to Knothole and offers to be their inside spy on Robotnik. We see Snively bickering with Robotnik about his new plan, and gives the sheet to Uncle Chuck, who spills the beans to Sonic and tells him to go destroy the machine while he attends to another important matter. Keep that in the back of your mind if you're picking on continuity. So while Sonic was going in to destroy the machine, Sonic accidentally gets sent to the void. Snively starts terrorizing the planet when a hovercraft, piloted by Uncle Chuck and some unknown assistant, attacks him. Sonic distracts him long enough to allow Uncle Chuck to get a demobilizing shot. Robotnik drops on Snively and reveals that Uncle Chuck freed him to stop Snively. So everything goes back to normal, with Uncle Chuck now being free of Robotnik's control and back in Knothole. The next story is a bit weird, but it was drawn by Spaz, so I feel the need to include it. Robotnik notices his Chaos Emeralds,
of which are still all green,
are being stolen by something. He sends Cocoa Nuts out to catch the crook. A bunch of Roadrunner jokes are made, and it ends with the notion that Sally and Bunny were stealing them to make them as nice jewelry for a charity dance.
I give up!
You guys have no clue how long it took me to make all this. Well, I mean, you could look at the date difference between my last video, but that would ruin the rhetorical statement. I'm lucky I'm out of school and even able to do these, because it's a lot of reading, a lot of notes, and a lot of time. I hope I'll have another one up, but there's a lot of things to cover, and it's not easy to do all this when I'm working 2 jobs. But I'll try to make it happen. While you're waiting for the next batch, go out and buy some Sonic Selects and read them, just to try to get an understanding of what I'm trying to summarize here. I guess looking back, I can say that the continuity inconsistency of the consecutive comics make them really hard to read. You honestly just need to take your time and enjoy each comic for what it is. Maybe in a separate video, one day, I'll share my opinions on the Sonic universe as a whole. But until then, go get Sonic Select 2, which has the Knuckles chaotic story that takes place between now and the next video that will cover Sonic issues 31 through 40.